Got it. Howdy y'all, you got the Bulldog on the channel. Today we've got a 2006 Toyota Avalon here, and it's had an issue. Battery went dead, they went and got a battery put in it, and then the battery went dead again. Well, that's because your bucket's gonna go empty if you don't have something filling it back up. So we're gonna be doing an alternator today. Let's get to it. First things first, we're gonna pull this cover here. Now it's got these little, what I call them, Christmas trees holding it. There can be a little tricky getting out because there's no good way other than pull and try not to break the plastic. They have tools to do this with, but they usually don't work. See how they're recessed down in a hole? Now, we've got the coolant neck right here in our way. So, well, let's go ahead and drop the alternator off of here and get it floating around in this area and see what all's going to be in our way. If it can't come up through this hole right here, then we're going to end up having to come up through here, which means we do have to pull the cooling fan. Of course, they put the neck exactly in the middle of the area you've got to work in because I don't want you spoiled, but honestly, I think if I pull this cover here, I can lean everything forward enough to get this out. As usual, we've got an extremely tight situation in here. It's a 14 millimeter on the end of the tensioner. Pull it to the back, slide the belt off. Putting it back on there is going to be a nightmare. We're going to go ahead and unhook the battery here. The battery has been dead, so we're not losing anything by going ahead and unhooking it. No reason to take a chance. Grab the electrical connections on the alternator. This stuff is all 10 millimeter usually. I've had people ask me what size is this and what size is that. Well, I never really pay attention to what size they usually are because most of the time they change them around. It is usually a certain size or not. But there'll be times when it's supposed to be 14 and they'll have a 12 millimeter stuck in there, and it's supposed to be 12 and they have a 10. Or it is what it is. The lower bolt feels like a 14. This upper bolt is a 14. Sure is. Oh! And I'll get a socket for that other one. It's nice when they break loose, you can just spin them out with your fingers after that. Okay, now we got one more bolt. Right there. There we go. Right there. It's on the back side of the lower saddle up to the block. Now that should be a 12 millimeter. You're probably going to drop it, so have a magnet handy when you're backing it out. Tech tip. Now, if you want, if it needs it, oh, this one came right out, but you can lean it out a little bit and drive back on this collar a little bit, and that'll kind of release the tension. Sometimes you have to, sometimes you don't. You just have to be careful not to break your ears. You don't whale on it, you tap on it. Tiny tap, tiny tap. All right, we'll see how much we lack of getting this thing out. The wiring loops around the alternator, and it hooks down below and above and everywhere. It would have to come out perfectly straight, but it can't because the wiring's in the way. It's also got the AC line directly underneath it. Everybody complains, if only that one thing would move. If that one thing would move, that means something else is in the way. That's just how it is. Now, if I pull the hose off here, this thing sticks out to here. It might or might not give me enough room. I'm going to pull the upper cover and see if I can get enough slack on this to get around the back side of the alternator. With that removed, I can see that this wire kind of loops around here, so we'll try unplugging this. Unplugging this, see if we can get enough slack here. There we go. All right, we're pulling straight forward. Something's still catching on the bottom. This is wiring hooked to it. Yes, it is. The wiring's hooked to it down there. On the back side. That's convenient. See that clip there? That's clipped to the alternator. And how do you take that off? Well, screw them. That's how you take it off. I'm going to try to finagle around with something and see if I can get that thing loosened up. I think I got it. I got it. Without breaking anything. Everybody asks me, why would they do that? Well, I'm not the guy to ask. Ask whoever built it brand new. Okay, now and where that extra inch that I would get from pulling the cooling fan would make it work. But let's pull this bracket up here. I'll see if I get enough movement forward to take this out. Again, we've got wiring catching everywhere because there's a bracket sticking way out. There we go. And there we go. Tried to film a little extra on that. Okay, there's a lot of noise. Oh, decoupler pulley's a little bit loose. But yeah, there we go. We're gonna change this bracket out right here and go back in with the new one. Okay, now going back in, I came out like this, so that's how we're gonna go back in. Pull everything forward just enough that it'll pass. I'm pulling forward with my forearm over here where you can't see me doing it, and that's why you have to use leverage in every way you can. Work a lower hose around that ear. Okay. Now we go. You just have to keep working on it. Pay attention to what might be catching and double check yourself. Now I gotta get my wiring around this ear. You always have the possibility of putting this ear in later. So I think you'll run into your own set of problems when you do it that way too. Come on. Come on. There we go. Now I got part of it hooked down around that other bracket. It's off the bottom. don't want you spoiled, Buck. There we go. Gosh. Now. There we go. Now it's up in the saddle. Here, I'm gonna just start trying to lessen the amount that they can move around. Get these 2 bolts in. Sorry I'm not showing you this lower bolt, but I can't see it either. Going by feel. Now, I've got the 2 saddle bolts in. To do this bolt here, this is a trick that I learned years ago. Take a paper towel, set it over the head, and stuff it up into your socket, tear it off, and now you're holding it in there. People use super glue and all that kind of stuff to try to do this, but you know, a paper towel will disintegrate over time and disappear, whereas if you put super glue on, it's going to try to, you know, you have to wait for it to dry and all that. So this is what I do. Start it by hand, and I don't have this tight. I've got it started. It didn't start. I think it started now. Yep. Now you can tighten down. Why do we have so many tools? Because of this. You have to be long enough to get out over top of this hose, water outlet. Short enough to get in between the engine and the frame. Sometimes that overlaps. So yeah, fun. Okay, I'm gonna catch my breath a little bit and then I'm gonna try to get this belt put back on. That's gonna be fun. No, it won't. This is what I've come up with. I've got my 14mm on the tensioner down there, and I've got a bar stuck through this, holding it open so that I can try to get this belt on. There's no good way to do that. It's just a fight. Okay. Now that pulley that's directly above the tensioner there, that's the last one you put on. The problem is, it is such a short throw between that pulley there and the alternator right there that it doesn't want to go completely up on there. All right, release this. Start putting all the electric back into place. Go ahead and bolt the radiator support back up. Now, wiring back into place. Click, click. Okay. Now, walked off to one side. 2 threads in. Nice. Gather tools, put the engine cover back on. Okay, let's fire it up and test the alternator. $14.32. Okay, ran it out there for a test drive. Got back, double checked the voltage on it, 14 volts. Customer came, picked it up, all paid for, ready to go. Like, comment, subscribe, hit your little bell notification, share it all around. We'll talk to you later.